Hello everybody, this is Mr. Cousage, and today we're going to start Chapter 7, Conic Sections and Parametric Equations. So the first lesson is 7.1, Parabolas. Now I'm sure you've seen parabolas last year in Algebra 2. So here's a parabola, but there's a few more parts that maybe you haven't seen last year. So in a typical parabola, we have the vertex, I'm sure you know about that, and we have what's also called the focus on the inside. There's the axis of symmetry, the mirror line, and there's another line that's perpendicular to the axis of symmetry called the directrix. Okay? Now, the directrix is equal distance from the vertex as the focus is, right? So this distance and this distance are equal. I was going to write it here, and then I thought, well, let me put it in the other diagram, because I also have to say that your parabola can be sideways. Okay, depending on the equation, it could come out sideways. So here's where I tell you that this distance is equidistant. They're equal. And we refer to that as the p-value, the p number, which will be in the equation. I'll show you in a second. So these are the parts of the parabola. This is the form of the equation that we're going to work with for the parabola. Let me pull it up a little bit. Right there. So we'll get to the examples when we have numbers here. But right now, you're going to do a lot of copying because I'm going to explain to you just by looking at the equation how to get from the equation all these parts. Right? Do you remember the vertex was HK? Right? So if your equation is in this form, this number and this number determine the vertex. So I wrote that down. Oh, before I wrote that down, your equation can be up or down depending on if this number here, the p number or the p-value here, is positive or negative. So if it's positive, it's up. If it's negative, it's down. So like I said, the vertex is this number. So I'm saying the vertex is HK, whatever HK is, right? The focus is HK plus P. So what we're doing is we're going to HK and then adding P, right there, K plus P. Okay? The axis of symmetry is, if this is the vertex, HK, isn't this symmetry going to go through H? That's right, X equals H. Sorry. X equals H. The axis of symmetry is X equals H, meaning the first number. Right? That first number. And then finally, the directrix. Remember what we said? It was equal distance, but down. So HK, but move down P. Right? So take K value and take away P, and you'll be down here. Right? So it looks like a lot. It looks confusing. But once we work with the numbers, you'll see that it's not that bad. So go ahead and pause here if you want and copy this and this. Right? So notice the form is the same, except this is the x minus a number being squared. This is y minus a number being squared. And that makes all the difference, because when you take your x part and square it, you're going to get an up or down parabola. If you take your y part and square it, you're going to get a sideways. Now, to the right, if your p number is positive, to the left if your p number is negative. The vertex is still HK, but notice they're flipped over, right? The H is always next to the X. So HK. We add P to the H because we're going sideways. So here's HK. You add P and you're there. You subtract P and you're there. Right? So the axis of symmetry is at K. Directrix is, like I said, directrix is you subtract P. Okay? So again, I went really fast through this, but it's easier if you see it in an example. So let's get to the example. So here is an example, and you're asked to, from this equation, you're asked to identify the vertex, the focus, the axis of symmetry, the directrix, and the graph. And then graph it, right? So let's go one by one. The vertex, if we look at, I'm going to put the first page up because that's where we did everything. So the vertex was the h number and the k number. Now wait, the y part comes here. So this is the h, this is the k, right? Remember the minus comes with the formula, with the form. So minus 2, so h is 2. This is really minus negative 5. So k is negative 5. Okay? So I did this to it to show you that it's really minus negative 5. So now you see the h and k. Right? Now, is this the p number? No. If you look at our form, that number is 4 times p. Right? This number is 4 times p. So this number is 4 times what? 4 times negative 3. That's your p number right there. So with these three numbers, we can determine all that. So we already got the vertex. It's 2, negative 5. If you remember, your focus was h plus p comma k. So we're going to add p, the negative 3, to the 2. Right? And it becomes negative 1, negative 5. So I got my focus. I'm doing exactly what I did, what I said I would do in the notes here. How about your axis of symmetry? Well, the axis of symmetry is whatever the k number is. So in this case, it's negative 5. Y equals negative 5. Right? The directrix, that's when you take away the p. So it's 2 minus negative 3, because p is negative 3, and you get 5. Okay? Now to graph it, I have the graph right here, but I'm going to do it really quick, and then don't copy this. Wait till I show you the nice one. So the first thing you do is put a point for the vertex, which is 2, negative 5. Where is 2, negative 5? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right there. Right? Where's the focus? The focus was negative 1, negative 5. So it'd be negative 1 down here. Negative 1, negative 5. So now I know, since this is the focus, that it opens up this way. Right? And this would be, I don't even have to look. This has to be the line of symmetry. It has to be that. Where's the directrix? The perpendicular line? That's equal distance on the outside across here. So if this was 1, 2, 3 inside, we go 1, 2, 3 on the outside, and this is the directrix right there. I graphed it. That's it. That's all you have to do. So this is a little bigger here. This is a little bigger here, but I graphed it. So what did we do? Right? Just by looking at this equation, we found all this information, and with that information, I was able to graph it. Okay? So let's move on to talking about the standard form a little more. So the standard form, if I take out the numbers, the standard form, doesn't it look like this? Right? Let's look at it a little closer. We have the parentheses with a square on one side. On the other side, we have parentheses with no square, but there's a number in the front. By the way, that's where the p is going to be, right? Now, we don't know if the x is going to be here or here. We don't know if the y is going to be... If the y is going to be here or here. We'll do that, but the form looks exactly like this. Now, if they're flipped over, it's okay. It's still the same thing, right? Equal. So it doesn't matter if you put this on the left or the right. right? Number parentheses with no square equals parentheses with square, right? Okay, so sometimes you'll have to do completing the square, sometimes, okay? Now, I'm going to do it here. Hopefully it'll come back to you, but when we meet in class, we'll do a little practice, okay? So, look at this equation. It's not in the correct form. It doesn't look like this. We need to rearrange it so it's in the correct form. So I got my y, that looks good, but I can't have two x terms. So when you have this, right, if you remember from Algebra 2, you can complete the square so you'll get something that we like. So, how do you complete the square? Really quick. You go to the middle term, right? Trinomial, you go to the middle term. Think half of the middle term squared. What is half of the middle term squared? So half of the middle term is 4, squared is 16. Then you add and subtract that. So here's my trinomial. In this spot right here, I'm going to squeeze in plus 16 minus 16. Why? Because that 16, which I chose, right, which I figured out using the middle term, half the middle term squared, is going to make me a perfect square here. Now, why the minus 16? Because you don't want to change the equation. If you add something and take it away, you still have the same thing. But this part right here, which I put in a bracket, this part right here is a perfect square, so you can rewrite it. Do you remember this? You can rewrite it like this. That's what we're looking for, right? The parentheses with the square. I guess it's going to be on the right side. The parentheses with the square. That's what we're looking for. We're almost there. So now how about the other side? Well, this should be alone on one side, and we should have parentheses on the other side. So let's cancel this, right? By doing plus 12 plus 12, right? So that goes away. So 4y plus 12 is 4y plus 12. Where's the parentheses? Well, you have to have the y by itself anyway, right? So we're going to factor out the 4. If you factor out the 4, this becomes y, this becomes 3, like this. And I am done. So what did we do? We started out with some other form of the equation, and we got the standard form, the desired form. So from here, I can tell you this is hk, right? The p number is 4. I'm sorry, the p number is 1. Fourth p would make it 1. Then I can figure out the directrix. I can figure out the symmetry line, right? From this form, just like we did before. But in this situation, your question was, your instructions were to write in standard form. And in this case, we had to complete the square. You don't always have to do that. Some are quicker. Like for this example. Let me show you another example where it's a little bit quicker. Okay, let me hurry up so I don't make this video too long. So look at this. Oh, look, I already got y or x squared. In this case, is y squared, and I already got the x. So I don't have to complete the square, right? Because in the other one, we had a square x and an x, and we had to do something about that. Here, we got an x by itself, we got the y by itself, and one of them is squared. Good for us. So when you have this situation, you can think of y squared as y plus 0 squared. So I got the parentheses squared part. That's done. But it has to be by itself. So let me get rid of the 33. Minus 33 minus 33, you get that. Getting closer, right? Now how do I get the x in the parentheses and the x by itself? Pull out the negative 8. If you pull out the negative 8, factor out the negative 8, you get that. And I'm done. This is in the correct standard form, right? You don't need to put the 0 there. You could have left it like this. I know this doesn't look like the standard form, but it is, because y plus 0 is y. Okay? And then, from this, if we wanted to, we could graph it. right? So my P number is -2, right? 4P is -2. This is 0, this is 7, so my vertex is -7, 0. So there's my vertex, -7, 0. And I go 2, right? 2 more to the left. And that's my focus. Another way to look at it is because your P number is negative, it's going to open to the left. So your focus is 2 in, your directrix is 2 out, and your line of symmetry will be the axis. Okay? So let me leave you with a couple of try problems. And 15 minutes, wow, that is long. So go ahead and do these two problems. Change them to the standard form. So I'll give you some hints. This one doesn't need completing the square. This one does need completing the square, but before you complete the square, go ahead and divide by 3 first. Okay, do the best you can. I'll give you the answers in class. 16 minutes, yeah, it is kind of long. Okay, so see you in part 2. Bye-bye.